Good morning. It's Stacy. We're doing walking in my shoes this morning. Continued of the series, PTSD through the eyes of the veteran. Today, I say that every day it gets harder, or this is the hardest one ever. I think today is probably, again, the hardest one ever. Excuse me, me and coffee this morning. The thing we're going to talk about this morning is what leads to the 22 a day. We have over 22 veterans a day, reported veterans a day, taking their own lives. 22 a day. Um, Again, that's reported. That isn't the that's the best average based on data. There's a lot of things that go unreported in these datas and in these numbers, but this is what they're getting is 22 a day. So what leads us to it's hard because you don't get to talk to the veteran. Sorry, y'all, I know better than this in front of the sun. You don't get to talk to that veteran after it's done. You don't get to talk to anybody after they've committed suicide. Um, you don't you can't go back and say, why did you do this? Because suicide attempts, for the most part, for a lot of parts, are a cry for help. They're the precursor to the actual event. So while some attempts are very close and those you can kind of go back and talk to, it's very hard when we talk about suicide. What was actually the point that drove them over the edge, or anybody who commits suicide over the edge? And so for me, I can kind of share the personal story for me. It's not a secret. I wanted to die. I'm not sure that I actually wanted to go through with it, but I was at a place that was very dark, and the cries for help did get heard, and I am here today because of those cries for help. So, but what happens? You lose your sense of being, and you get to a point. There you go. I know this is bad. You get to a point where you think that the world is better off if you're not there, better off if you're dead. Um, and how do you get to that point? We've talked about what the veteran has seen, especially a combat veteran, what they have seen, holding their buddies in their arms as they're dying, or seeing them without legs, and there's a lot to it, and knowing that somebody died that you couldn't stop, and you sent them the wrong way, or they went away opposite of you. There's all these scenarios that play out. So again, um, a veteran is taught accomplish the mission. Accomplish the mission. We have a mission. We have to accomplish the mission. We have to be successful at our mission. So when they come home and they're out and they're done with their service career, there's not a defined mission. It's like, oh, come home, be with your wife, meet somebody, live, have a family, be a functioning part of society. But there's no defined mission. There's not a beginning and an end to the mission. So you've taken away that sense of drive in them. And this I can only speak from what I see in the spouse's side is so often we become it's easier for me to do it, or I have to take care of him, or I can't get him to do. There's no mission there. So you've taken that away. And for Carl, for my veteran, we've had this conversation, as he will say over and over and over and over and over again. We have a business, and it's my job to like get the business and his job to do the business. And I don't always do that. And so when I don't do that, um, he feels less of a man because he's not doing what he needs to do to provide for us. And so we take that away sometimes. And we don't realize that we're doing that. We don't realize that we've taken that away. And so from the veteran's perspective, there's no purpose. Um, we know statistically that veterans who come back, especially combat veterans who come back, if their marriages fail, they don't have the best relationship with their children. Their spouses or former spouses come in and like, you're a danger to your kid. You can't be there. Well, now you've taken away the role of parent. Um, we do it in spouses. I see it all the time who are like, I can't trust him to be alone with my child, or I don't want him to have to take Johnny to ball practice, or I don't want. You've taken away that mission. So that mission leaves them. So what is happening in their mind? They're becoming less and less and less valuable. So why be here? We see those red flags and we miss them. We miss those red flags. Go back to medication that they take. So here you're given all these medications. And I'm not denying that medications can help. They can when when done in the whole circumstances correctly. But read the side effects. Really take the medications that we give that are prescribed by the standards. Look at the side effects. The side effects of medication to deal with depression is depression and suicide. Suicidal ideations. Almost every single antidepressant has warning, suicidal ideation. So you're taking somebody who's already there and you're doing that. Another huge side effect, especially for men, is impotency. They can't get an erection. All right, so now be again in their shoes. Come home, there's no mission. They're already feeling incredible pain from what they saw, that they don't have anybody to who's really been in their space, who's really been there to feel the way they feel, in what they've seen. And again, we talked about see, smell, feel, hear. We've done that. And so now you've brought all that back home, no mission. They're not adding up. They're not stepping up the way that they think we should feel, like their family and whatever. Oh, what happened to Johnny? He's not out playing ball with his friends. He's not the life of the party anymore. He's not all this because he's come back different, and we expect him to come back the way he was. So you have that added to it. Now you've got depression that you're given a medication for that causes depression. You've taken away because we all try to protect them, and that's just by nature. It's not in a mean way, and we don't mean to do it. So we try to take the stress off and take away from them So now we've taken away more mission from them. We've taken away their purpose. Sorry. What do you expect? What do you expect? It's not you who does it. It's not me who causes it. It's not, it's the whole puzzle. And we miss those red flags. We we miss that. The concept of it will be better off for everyone if I'm dead. Trust me, I've been there. I know that. I can't even begin to tell you that from a veteran's perspective because I assure you, in my 20 years in EMS, I never saw what they saw. I never dealt with what they dealt with on a regular, consistent basis. I never did. But when all of a sudden you're told you can't do the only thing you've ever known again, goodbye, have a nice day. Oh, and by the way, turn in your uniforms. Literally, that's how my EMS career ended. It wasn't thank you for your service. It wasn't let's have a party that you're leaving. It wasn't here's a piece of cake. It was I need you to bring your uniforms in right now. Literally. And I was out on a medical thing. And then as things progressed and you know, there's some medical issues going on, I just didn't feel that I had this purpose. I was going to become a burden to my veteran, to my family, to my kids. I wasn't doing EMS anymore. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have this purpose. And my concept became I'm better off dead. The world is better off with became withdrawn. I became angry. I became bitter. I became all these things. And these are things we see every day that are happening to veterans all over everywhere. They're withdrawn. I hear my veterans say, I'm in a spot, I'm in a place. Well, in a conversation we had last night, I realized finally, because he says I'm smart, but I gotta have the thickest head in the world because I'm dense. I finally realized that my actions by doing things that I thought were protecting him and helping him along the way, my actions were putting him in that spot. Took away the drive, took away the mission, took away the stuff. The sense of loss that a veteran already feels when they've lost their buddies and they've lost friends and they've been through that and then I'm taking that away and you don't realize that you're doing it. This sense of loss is so intense. And remember, we've already said that they've done their time in service. They get a pat on the back. They're said, have a nice time. And the next guy is already standing there in their spot, in their thing, ready to go on. And they are done. Then they come home, or in our case, it was after he was out. You know, what am I doing to that? I'm adding to that sense of worthlessness. And you don't mean to. You don't mean to. You know, I had an incredible conversation with probably one of the bravest, most heroic women I have ever had a chance to talk to, and that is Miss Jean Lutz, and she is amazing. And she's amazing because of her tragedy. And her story will be on our conversation together will be on YouTube channel tomorrow. Her son came home, not the same son she sent. He literally went to his mom and said, I am in such a dark place. Here's my gun. I'm in such a dark place. Lock the guns. Went to the VA for help. The session didn't last long. And what happened as a result of that? As a result of that, he came home and killed himself. She got the fact that he wanted to get rid of the gun. What she didn't get, and she'll tell you this, was just where he really was. And her youngest son, Justin, found him dead. And so in everybody's mind, you know, Justin's not gonna do anything because he saw what it did to his brother. And Justin ends up committing suicide because of that. But in the middle between Johnny's death and her younger son's death, he contemplated suicide. So the cycle and the flags that we don't see is so incredibly important to look at all the things. In her mind, she failed her child. In her mind, she wasn't a mother. She didn't have that mission. So what did she do? She went to a support group and she saw other families who had lost children from various reasons. And she said, that's not going to happen to me. And I'm going to make a difference. And she has. And that's where I'm going with this. The red flags went off in her head that day. And she said, I can do something different. But you have to see them. And it's so easy to say, oh, he's in a funk today. Oh, he's doing this today. Yeah, they all get in a funk. We all get in a funk. We all get in our spot. We all get in our place. But there's usually something awfully different about it. And we don't know that feeling of worthlessness. So I am never indicating or saying that our actions can cause that because suicide is a personal thing. We don't do that to them. It is something that suicide victims do on their own. But you've got to get help. Jeremy has shared the story and he will continue to share the story. He was there. He was ready to take his own life. And in that split second, he realized his son was upstairs asleep. His wife and his daughter had gone to visit her family, and it would have been on his son to find him the next morning, and that's why he did it. And that's the difference between thought, ideation, and the actual thing. That one split second, somebody says, you matter, and refocus, and that one split second that it happens. And it happens. The place and the deepness of my life isn't worth this. I would be better off dead. I carry this guilt. I've done this. I've done that. We take it all inside. And then what happens? We create a permanent end to a temporary situation. And how do we get past this? How do we reduce the 22 a day? How do we reduce the spouses and the numbers that aren't accounted for that are committing suicide or the parents? How do we stop that? We stop that by forming community. We stop that by offering support. I have never been into rap music. It's just never been my thing. But I will tell you, Soldier Hard is a veteran. He is amazing. And his stories in there are so real. And I'll actually post red flags to the page today. What he says is so real. And one of the lines he uses is, we need to buddy up. When we find somebody there that's in that place, we need to buddy up. We need to reach out. We need to find somebody who's walking in our shoes with us in the same place and buddy up. It works in AA. AA is one of the most successful programs out there, whether you like it or don't. Statistically, it's one of the most successful programs out there, and it is about support. It's getting a sponsor, it's getting a buddy, it's getting somebody that you sit there and talk to somebody who's in the same situation you're in at that moment and be able to go on. You know, I've talked to veterans after the fact that have been to a place. I've talked to their spouses, and one of the complaints is that it's so easy to go see a counselor who has a degree, and I am not disputing that. I have friends who are counselors who have a degree, and they do some amazing stuff. But if they've never walked in your shoes and they've never lived with a combat veteran or they've never been a combat veteran, it is so easy to say, just do this, just do that. It's much easier to hear it from somebody who's been there with you, not in the exact same place, but had your circumstances. It's so much easier for a veteran to reach out to another veteran who's been on that road and say, buddy, this is where I'm at. It's so much easier for a spouse to reach out to another spouse and say, this is where I am. Help me. That's what communities do. And that's the key of what's missing in saving ourselves. You gotta reach out. You gotta get help. You gotta find your buddy. I don't care who it is. Find them. Reach out. There are so many great places and avenues. You know, we have the crisis hotline. And I told Jeremy one day, I said, Jeremy, it drives me nuts. It tells you to dial this number and then press one. Hello, if my life really matters, I don't want to have to press one. And it gives you an option to text. And he said, Stacy, but texting is sometimes a thing. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I used it because it wasn't personal and I could reach out for help. And I was texting and it helped me. And so, you know, again, I'm not disputing any of these because there are tons of lives that are saved by text and by pressing one. But sometimes before we get to that place, reaching out for support. And so that's what we do. That's what human beings do. We're living in a world where we don't support and love and embrace each other anymore. You know, I think that's where so much of this anger that our veterans face, it's not over who's sitting in the White House. It's not over who's in the Senate. It's not over any of that. It's the fact that the breakdown of what they did is not here. We don't love each other. We don't respect each other. We don't help each other. We don't lift each other up. Yeah, I would almost just like to do a survey kind of deal. There are times that I want to pull the car over and have a flat tire and watch how many people ride by before somebody stops to help. Because I assure you, been there, done that on the interstate. My daddy made me learn to change a tire. But 30 years ago, 30 some years ago, I got a flat tire on the interstate. There were no more than four cars that went by me before two people stopped to help me. And it wasn't the guy who does the little road thing now that rides up and down the interstate. What do you think's going to happen today? How many people do you think are going to drive by? How many of our veterans are taught the buddy can't do it anymore? March and anything, that they grab them, they pick them up, they lift them up, take them with them. That's what they're taught. It's what's ingrained in their brain. It's what's ingrained in their heart. It's what's ingrained in their mind. So you look at what's going on today, and we don't get why the numbers happen. We have to get back to this community. We have to love each other. We have to sit here and take a step and look at what are we doing to make the world a better place, our relationship a better place, that that we have to empower. And I don't. I need to take some of these videos that I do and play them on replay because I feel and I believe what I'm saying, but I don't always follow through, and we don't always follow through. My actions have a negative effect on him because I don't think it. We all are there. We've all done it. Their actions, when they explode, have a negative effect on us. And so what happens is we get to this point where, oh, but Johnny's come home and I know he's a little stressed. He probably needs a little sleep. That's the mommy talking. And he just needs a little time. And then, well, not my Johnny. He still needs a little sleep and he needs a little time. No, he doesn't. When he's withdrawn, there's more to it. But we expect them to be the people they were, and they're not. I'm not the same person today I was yesterday. My life's events made me different yesterday than today. So do theirs. So do all of ours. My total message in this is look for the red flags. Look at the things and the whys and the hows. Are we changing them and their purpose? How are they changing them and their purpose? How do we expect a certain outcome when there's all these other influences? How do we reach out and say, we love you? We can do that. How come the spouses get incredibly, or partners get incredibly uptight when they don't want to share, but they'll talk to their buddy and you're like, well, wait a minute, you don't live with them, you live with me. Yeah. But nobody knows what it's like to beat alcoholism other than the alcoholic. Nobody knows what it's like to beat drug addiction other than the addict. Nobody knows what it's like to live the life as a fat girl and try to battle that other than the other fat girl who's done it. Nobody knows. Why do you think when you go on Facebook and you type spousal support groups for PTSD, there are literally hundreds of them because nobody knows what it's like other than the person who's there. Find those red. Look for those red. Find the help. Encourage the conversation. Realize the darkness. Look at everything. My dear friend spent 2 days fighting and being the advocate for her husband. So he wasn't. And she has no idea how proud I am. You know what? When he's done with his treatment, he's still going to be hers. He's not going to be a statistic. And she battled and she fought and she stood up and she said, things are not right. And because of it, he's here. house with her. He's here. That's what we have. We have to be the community and be proud of each other. We have to encourage. We have to think about the dark place that they're in. What can we do? I'm Stacy. You're loving him veteran. Ever a name, a number of your name, matter to us. On a personal note, my veteran matters. I always should, but I should. I'm gonna really work on it every day. I will see y'all tomorrow on another version of Walking in My Shoes. We do Let's Talk. Our support group is live on Zoom tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The link is on the Facebook page and in the groups and on the website. I encourage you, if you don't join that meeting, just find that partnership, find that. And tomorrow we're going to talk about some of these successes and how these incredible programs are working and how we can enable and love our veterans through all of this. So y'all have a blessed day. Be safe. Love your veteran. Love yourself.